welcome to another episode here for the Fungi Pod, Mindful Media and Communication. And today, a little bit of a different episode, because usually I break down things that are happening outside in the world, like the inauguration last week and things like this. This time, I thought I'll focus on what's happening inside, not even like inside in terms of like a country or a room, but more inside ourselves. What happens inside your mind, and how does communication play a role in that? Like, so far we always analyzed how to communicate with others, how others communicating, what does their communication mean, but do we actually really also focus on how we communicate with ourselves? I think the answer to that question is mostly no, to be honest. And I'm not sure like if you've ever felt like this, but if you felt like you're stuck in your head, that there are thoughts in your head that you keep battling, going back and forth, and it just doesn't stop. And I think communication with oneself is very important here. That's what could make it stop, or at least what could try to help make sense of it. So that's what we're trying to do here. So in this episode, I'll try to explore a little bit how like self-communication shapes emotions and actions, and maybe on this journey in the next like 15 minutes or so, we can actually find a way to understand ourselves, our thoughts, and figure out like, I know what to do and what not to do, and just how to be maybe a better listener to ourselves sometimes. And to do that, I think self-communication is something that we all have to get better at understanding. Like, it's like this inner dialogue that if you're still listening right now, you have an inner dialogue, I'm pretty sure. So, and this dialogue, right, between like all the voices in your head just shapes how you see the world and how you see yourself, right? Oh my God, I'm awesome. Oh no, I suck. Oh, the world is awesome. The world sucks. I get this inner dialogue between like good and bad, back and forth, happy and sad. It just kind of defines how you see the world. And very often it's not about just the big things. Sometimes it's like small things that lead, for example, to overthinking. Like you're with your partner, for example, and you're like, hey, you're looking over and like, hey, let's talk about something, but your partner is busy with, answering emails or whatnot, and that leads to your insecurity, and you're like, oh, he, she, they doesn't want to talk to me right now. What did I do wrong now? Oh my God, no one likes me. Everything sucks. Those small little things that then start triggering those thoughts in your head, and that then can lead, of course, to bigger issues, bigger problems down the line, freaking out, triggering something, whatever that might be, past traumas and whatnot. And I think it all comes down to, again, self-communication, understanding how we communicate within ourselves. How does our brain communicate with itself, with us? How do our thoughts play with each other, connect to each other, and so on? And I think to do this, to understand this better, one has to understand different kinds of thought patterns. And so I'll talk about a few common issues, and maybe you see yourself in that. And those are just a few examples that I think are rather common. One that I just mentioned, overthinking, right? So you would assume the worst case scenario of whatever's happening. So it's with your partner, if it's with yourself, if that's at work, whatever that might be. Something small happens, maybe your boss didn't talk to you even though you expected it, or your partner just ignored you because your partner had to get like on a work call or something, and you're just assuming the worst. All right, you're like, oh my God, he, she, they, them didn't talk to me because and it's overthinking. So you would assume the worst of someone's actions. Another thing that happens a lot, according to the research that I've been reading the last few weeks, is avoidance. So if you're very anxious, but then you choose not to share those thoughts with anyone, being that with your partner or with a close friend, or with a counselor or whatever that might be, but you're not sharing those thoughts. You're keeping those thoughts to yourself. And by keeping the thoughts to yourself, those thoughts are growing, right? Because they can't go anywhere. You're not letting them out. You're not communicating them. You're just like kind of like pressing, pushing them down. Like, yeah, I got it. Everything is fine. I got it. And then, right, they explode. And this then often leads to self-sabotage, right? So eventually you can't keep it down anymore, and self-sabotage might happen. So you say something stupid, you do something stupid, you yell at your boss, you yell at your partner, friends, whatever it might be. So eventually something bad happens from just like keeping like all the anxiety down and not sharing with anyone and just overthinking by yourself the whole time, right? And again, this is not because you're a bad person. This is not because you suck at whatever it might be, maybe at communication a little bit, but that's what we're here for. And I have to admit that this happens to me too, right? Obviously. So just because I teach communication stuff does not mean I'm like perfect at that. Unfortunately, I have to admit. So it happens. Like self-communication is, I think, something that we generally as people aren't as aware of. We are very aware of like how we communicate with others. As someone who's in like the media communication space, we're analyzing how to communicate with others. We analyze what do others mean by saying this and this and this and that. We don't really talk about how do we talk to ourselves? How do we communicate with ourselves? It might be more like a psychological thing. So you'd say, okay, don't go into media studies or communication studies for that. You go into like psychology studies, talk to a counselor and things like this. Yeah, and that's probably true, but I think it should be something that we do more often, more frequently. You shouldn't have to wait until it's too late. You have to learn how to communicate with yourself and how to then communicate what yourself is telling you with others. Okay, I think that is very, very, very important. And so one thing that like I could explain, like just to give you like some anecdote, right? So for me, when I realized I have like those self-communication troubles, I have like anxiety and overthinking and so on. So I think, okay, I understand it has to get out. So I wrote it down. I wrote it all down. I'm like, okay, notes app, for example, and you just write everything down that's in your head. At least you let it out. And that works for a moment. You're like, okay, it's gone. Nice, cool. However, that then also fuels the avoidance because, okay, you're putting it in your notes, right? Okay, you're getting it out of the system for a moment, but you're still avoiding it. You're still not sharing it with anyone, just like keeping it to yourself, right? So I think step one, communicating to oneself is very important. Step two, understanding how to then communicate what you're talking with about yourself, with how to share it with someone else. I think that's quite important. And there are several tools out there that can help you with all that. And I gotta admit again, like in the beginning, I was like, yeah, however, I don't need tools. Nah, I'm in communication studies, so why would I need a tool? Why would I need tools that help me to communicate? I know how to communicate. Yeah, so yeah, no. Tools are very helpful no matter the level of communication experience that you have. And there are some simple tools that you can use like every single day. And I do it right now actually. Like, so one of the easiest things that you can do is probably journaling, right? So you externalize and reflect on your thoughts. Like reflection is a good thing anyways. Now, if you have a phone, smartphone, you probably have a journaling app on there anyways. I know iPhones have, for example. But even if not, you could use ChatGPT for it. You can, maybe if not, then here's the news. You can tell ChatGPT to perform repetitive tasks. So for example, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, you pick new chat, and then you go like, I think is it 4 or whatever, and the tasks, it's called tasks. Yeah, so you pick the tasks model, and you say, hey, ChatGPT, every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 9 p.m., remind me that I have to journal and I want to answer or reflect on those 3 questions. What made me happy? What did I think about today? What do I have to do tomorrow, for example? And in the morning, I want those 3 questions. Then every morning and every night, ChatGPT will send you like a push notification. Hey, don't forget, reflect right now. So either use a journaling app on your phone, use ChatGPT if you're into AI, use a handwritten book. I've just written like several pages today. Like to use a handwritten notebook, because I think when you see it while you write, it's also very, very helpful from my point of view. Okay, but do journaling. Journaling really, really, really helpful to understand what your thoughts are all about, actually. Okay. Then another buzzword, but being mindful. I mean, this podcast is called Mindful Media and Communication. Mindfulness, I think, is a very, 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 very important. Yeah, when those thoughts race and spiral, that's when you have to step away and step outside and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, call it like the pause technique. More on, if you want more about the pause technique, it's on my IG right now. Check it out. The pause technique, meaning like actually first step back, pause, and ask yourself, is this right now, is it helping me? Is it actually helping me? What is it doing? Like, what are my thoughts doing? Why is this happening? And if you take a pause, take a breather, think about if it's helping you, then you understand what is happening. Like, oh, whoa, wait, my thoughts are going crazy right now. It's because of this and that. That's not real. I'm overthinking right now. Let's just take a break for a second. Okay, so this could be like, when you take the pause, you could then also get some time to maybe reframe your thoughts. Like, okay, things are not happening because of me right now. You could shift from, oh, my partner is talking to someone, not because your partner doesn't want to talk to you, but maybe because your partner has to talk about work with someone or something like that. Okay, so the pause technique helps to break that cycle of like, wow, everything sucks, no, everything is against me, everyone hates me, and then just, okay, pause, step back, think about it, be more mindful, reframe it, like, oh yeah, that makes more sense actually. Okay, and then you communicate your thoughts. Still important. Then you communicate what just happened. Okay. Also, one thing that I think we in self-communication don't really discuss is discomfort, right? So we don't really address it a lot, I think. Maybe it's especially like millennial generation. But of course, so I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing, and I hope the new generation, Gen Z and after that, is better at that. But I think millennials and probably before us, we don't really talk about like past traumas, past whatever happened in the past and how it affects us right now. It's like always like, just ignore, I moved on, it's okay. And so I think being honest with oneself and being like, hey, I have to communicate with myself, like, hey, let's think what actually happened in the past, how did it make me feel? It's also something that we not always talk about. How did it make me feel and how does it impact me right now? Because it's so easy to say like, no, I moved on, I'm strong, I move on, nothing impacts me, which is not true, right? So being open enough to understand that, to admit it, be like, okay, first I communicate to myself, with myself, and then I can communicate it with my partner, friends, counseling, again, whoever you're talking to, all right? So I think this is probably pretty hard for especially older people. I'm including myself right now, like millennials and so on, right? I do hope it's something that hopefully the younger generations struggle less with, because that's nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody had problems, faced hard truth in the past. You have to communicate with it, about it. You have to get used to it and have to be able to share it with the people that you trust. If you then think, okay, now the question is, how do we move forward from all that, right? So I'm talking to myself, just talking to myself in a different way, not in the Linkin Park way. So you talk to yourself, you address all the issues, you address like what's happened, you address like how it made you feel, you address what actions it led to, why. Then you also take responsibility for all the actions, of course. So I'm not saying that communicating about like what happened in the past is an excuse for what's happening now. Of course not. but it helps you understand, right, yourself. And if you want to move forward, I think there are also a few tools that you could be using, right? So one thing that I do is like daily check-in. Yeah. So for example, like what are you grateful for is, I think, a good question. It's a very cheesy one, I know, but I think it's still a good question, because then you see that, hey, there's still stuff there that I'm grateful for, even though I've been overthinking and so on. Then maybe you could also ask yourself about the intention to approach the day, the next day. How are you going to approach tomorrow? Or if you do the mindfulness in the morning, then you say, okay, how do I approach the day today? What are my goals today? If you talk about like the inner critic who's like always telling you that you're not good enough, I think it helps to replace that harsh self-talk. That is always going to be there, right? But replace it with progress reminders. Like, how did I progress today? Because then you can tell your inner critic, like, yeah, I know you tell me I suck, but look, that's the progress I made today. I did something. I made some progress. Just a little bit, but I made some progress. So shut up for now. Okay, I'm making progress. So that's also something important to, again, use in self-communication to remind you that you're actually doing something, that you're making progress, that you're getting better, so that those thoughts that are battling in your head, like, I'm terrible, I'm bad, I suck, no one loves me, that you can control them, right? Again, self-communication, very important. So communicate about your daily progress, okay? Your progress reminders. That is something that can help. And the last thing I want to say in this regard, and then it's been 15 minutes already, the last thing I want to say here is that really sharing is caring, and it's the key. So you do have to understand how to communicate with yourself. You do have to understand where it's coming from, what did it do now, what is it doing right now in the present, in the past, in the present. Try to not let it impact the future too much. But eventually, self-communication has to lead to you being able to share it with someone else. Sharing it then eventually with your partner, with your close friends, with a counselor, right? So this vulnerability of sharing feelings will help you to move past all those struggles that you have in your mind. Yeah, it's kind of like we want to control it. We're like, no, I can't control it. I don't want others to be affected by it. But by not sharing it, it will affect others way more than sharing ever would. And only if we understand that, by communicating with ourselves, reminding ourselves of that, and then being able to share with others, only then can we fight it, can we combat it, and can actually then win against it. And I think that's something that has to be sometimes said and visualized or reminded of, okay? So I think self-communication is really important in regards to understanding where thoughts come from, but then not using it as an excuse, then also understanding that, hey, even though there's a reason for those thoughts, it's still my responsibility. Like how I'm acting based on those thoughts is still my responsibility. There's no excuse. And then eventually you have to kind of also figure out how to be kind to yourself, which is a tough thing, especially if those thoughts are like triggering stupid reactions, for example, or things that you're not proud of. But then again, remember the progress reminders. You can then still say, okay, I am getting better, I will improve, I'm improving right now, here's my progress reminders, I'm actually taking the right steps. And that's how you can be kind to yourself as well, okay? So if you're thinking, like, how should I start? I would suggest that now you're just taking a pen and paper, old school, and you write down like a recurring thought that you might have, and just ask, like, what's driving this thought that I have right now? And how can I reframe it? Now, are there other viewpoints to this rather than just this crazy one that I have in my head? It's like, oh, no one likes me, everyone hates me, or like I'm terrible, or things like this. Maybe there's a different point of view to it, and then taking this different angle will actually allow you to see it in a different light and understand, oh, it's not just all about me. There are like other factors that influence the way communication is happening, the way my thoughts are being influenced. And I think the important to understand is also, and that's the last thing now, is that I think we all deal with spiraling thoughts. That it's a human thing, right? So the important part is really to learn to listen to yourself and listen to like differently, because if you get the different angle that you looking, or like how you're looking at your thoughts, this can help you to actually change everything. If you're like getting out of this spiral of like, oh, everything is terrible, and you just take like a step to the left or a step to the right, you pause, you reframe, and you're like, oh, actually it's not. I just have to share it and talk with people about it. That can really change your life. Okay, and enough of the motivational part right now, change your life. But I do think that's the case, and I would like to invite everybody to really like pay more attention to self-communication. Not only analyze what everybody else is saying, like how they say it, what they mean by it. Start with yourself. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make the change. Until then, I hope you're making a change. I hope you're growing, you're learning. See, I'm teaching things at uni, and I'm also still growing, learning. It never stops. We never stop understanding ourselves better. We never stop learning. That's just an important realization to have, I think. So don't stop believing, but also don't stop learning. And now enough with the songs. Until then, stay safe, take care, reflect, be grateful, be mindful, and we talk next time. Sadika.